So, this is 5 minutes and 53 seconds. When they reach the end of the tunnel, they see a white plain and an uphill stretching out, which later becomes like an ocean. And there's no one on that plain. This is 6 minutes and 50 seconds, as Chihiro gets worried and says, Mom, I don't want to go, I don't want to go. The mother just says, hurry up, Chihiro, but not even wants to look at Chihiro in the eyes. The father and the mother are actually in a good mood. When the mom loses her balance, the dad catches her saying, are you okay? And smile at each other, but they only tell Chihiro to hurry up. This is strange. There's a reason why both parents and especially the mother is acting cold to Chihiro, but I will talk more about this next week on the second half. And I'm gonna go in depth on this. It's been said that parents are childlike, like young couples, so they leave Chihiro out, but there's no way, Miyazaki does something so meaningless. I'll talk more about this next week. So, after they leave the tunnel at 7 minutes and 38 seconds, they see a very strange scene spread out. They get to this point in 7 minutes and 38 seconds. It's even faster than some Hollywood movies. So, you see these creepy billboards in the shape of an eye, which remind me of the manga of Yoshiharu Tsuge. Then as the camera pans down, you see the father and the mother and Chiharu. Chisato. No, it's Chihiro. So Chihiro follows up the stairs. I really can't get the name right. So this unmanned entertainment district spreads out. And this area is in between the real world and the illusionary world. So, humans built a bunch of weird buildings to create a theme park in originally sacred area where gods lived, with the money that they earned just before the bursting of the bubble economy. That's how the monsters ended up inhabiting there. Well, Chihiro's father says these are the remains of the bubble economy, but actually, this kind of theme park was everywhere in Japan since Meiji period, so... For example, there used to be an observatory in Asakusa, Tokyo called Fujisan Soranjo. This is the brochure from the back then. They made a miniature of Mount Fuji in Asakusa Roku Entertainment District in Meiji 20th. It was 32 meters tall, so it was pretty tall. And not only that, people could climb it up to the top. There's a picture too. We only have one with low quality. You can see people riding bikes in the front, so you can compare the heights. But this is what was called Asakusa Fuji. Again, it's 32 meters tall, so it was pretty tall to the point that people could actually walk the path from the bottom to the top. However, it was destroyed in Meiji 23rd, and the famous Ryounkaku, or so-called Asakusa 12 stories, was built on that site. Well, it looked like a vertical version of Leaning Tower of Pisa, so this kind of buildings were built in Asakusa. There's even a color print of this. Many buildings like this were built in Asakusa, and they were in great numbers during the good times in Meiji and Taisho period. There were many famous leisure facilities like Keiyokaku Yuen, Kagetsu Yuenchi, and Togetsu-en. There was also a garden called Okuyama Fuke in Asakusa, which was called a department store of shrines and temples with all kinds of Shinto gods and Buddha available to worship. These kinds of places appear in novels written by Rampo Edogawa, such as Strange Tale of Panorama Island and Ghost Tower. Rampo wrote different novels with similar plots where people built theme parks during an economic bubble between the end of Meiji period to Taisho period that insult gods, or should I say ignore their sanctitude, which triggers a series of mysterious incidents. Well, if any of you want to know more about this, I'll talk a bit more as I show some reference. Well, what I want to point out here is that Spirited Away is set in an abandoned theme park where ghosts settle in. So there are some similarities. So at 9 minutes, Chihiro's parents, while her parents eat the food feverishly, Chihiro has a bad feeling, so she leaves the parents and walks around the town. So, it's this scene. She's walking the town. An empty downtown extends endlessly. There are lanterns that are later lit up beautifully. What I like here is that composition where Chihiro stands at the corner on the screen. Also, pay attention to where the shadow is. There are the buildings that are right above, or they tilt slightly as the sunlight shines in. These details foreshadow the scary events that happens later, so every detail has a meaning. Chihiro is put on the opposite side of the shadow intentionally to say that it's still right outside and nothing has happened yet, but something will happen soon. And in fact, the story does get scarier and scarier from here and on. So, as she climbs up the stairs, she sees a mysterious building. There's a gorgeous pine tree and a garden lanterns, and beyond them, an arched bridge with red handrails. And beyond that arched bridge is a gigantic bathhouse named Abraya. Well, the red arched bridge is built for a practical reason as well, but it's made to follow a rule of Chinese thoughts of Xingxian, where any place mountain wizards live has an arched bridge for visitors to cross so they can enter a different world. The rich people back in old days in Japan built Japanese gardens, but despite the names, they were supposed to be sacred lands of gods where Chinese mountain wizards would live. That's how each of those gardens had a miniature version of arched bridges. So this one in the picture is a huge version of it. And beyond that, you see some magnificent structure. At 11 minutes and 15 seconds, Chihiro tries to cross the bridge, but she's not supposed to because across the bridge is God's land. But regardless, she tries to go to the other side. Then a boy named Haku, dressed in white, appears and says, "Go back! You can't go any farther." So, this is Haku. He says, "Go back, you can't go," facing and approaching the screen. But then, as you see, the shadow behind Haku extends drastically. So, because the sun is set in a rapid speed, the shadow of the bridge behind him grows so vigorously while Haku talks in a hurry, and his profile becomes more and more red. The red sky is spreading out and the shadow grows horizontally longer and longer. This is what you see in a vampire movie. The scenes is so horrific. The scene also shows how fast time passes in the world Abraya exists in, which is the world of gods and wizards. As you can see from here, it's 10 times faster than the real world. Later, I will explain why 10 times faster, but the whole plot of Spirited Away only takes about 4 days. It's only 3 nights and 4 days in length, but it's about a month long in the real world. Actually, maybe even longer than that. And how fast the time flows in a different world is an important theme, which I will explain next week, so please keep that in mind. For now, let's just remember that the time goes really fast there. Then the lanterns are lit up and black shadows grow out of the ground on the street that was previously unmanned. And Chihiro panics and tries to run back to the parents saying, "Dad, Mom!" Then the parents have unnoticeably turned into pigs as a punishment for eating the offering for the gods. On top of that, these numerous black beings that look like ghosts appear in the town that has already darkened. These are so well depicted. The previously empty town is now filled with these black shadows that have silently grown from the ground, and they start wandering around Chihiro. As she decides to leave the parents and runs down the stairs to where she originally came from, she sees more black shadows approaching her. So, the taste of the movie becomes more and more like a horror movie. However, when she descends the stairs, she notices that the white plain has turned into water. The tunnel which she has walked through is now far away, and there are city lights beyond the tunnel. Between them is a large body of water, like an ocean. Now she can't return home. This scene shows hopelessness, but it's also beautiful. It also shows how Miyazaki doesn't just explain things, but rather show them visually. Chihiro says, "It's all lie, disappear, disappear." Then her body starts becoming translucent. Then a tremendously gorgeous and luxurious fairy appears. And from that fairy, a lot of strange monsters come ashore. But Chihiro also sees them through her translucent hands. The scene depicts 2 different situations. One is that Chihiro is in fear as she realizes her body is vanishing. The other is that through those hands she finds the glimmering fairy. The two circumstances of what is happening to her and around her are being visualized simultaneously in one frame, so I can't say how well the scene is shot. It's not explanatory but more suspenseful, which makes the viewers curious to see what will happen next. The storyboarding in this scene is a true masterwork. Now, when the fairy arrives at the shore, gods come out. Now, it's a characteristic of Japanese gods that they are invisible. They don't possess appearances. I think I've explained this before, but let's take an example of Namahage in Akita Prefecture. People cover their virtual gods with masks and straw capes to pretend that's how they look like, knowing that essentially gods are shapeless. This idea is close to the worshipping of spirits in Southeast Asia. That's why the English title of this movie is Spirited Away. It means that these beings that you see in the movie are closer to spirits and gods. You can't see their bodies, so the only things you can see are the masks that they wear. However, those spirits in the movie become more and more substantial and visible to Chihiro as they come ashore, even though they aren't supposed to be. So this world is in a realm that is between the real world where the humans live and the world of gods. So the monsters come ashore one after another, but Chihiro at this point just think of them as monsters, not gods. Chihiro freezes in fear. Then Haku, that handsome boy, arrives and lets her eat food from this world. She needs to eat something that belongs to this world or she disappears. When she eats it, her body finally goes back to normal. After that, Haku takes Chihiro to the side of Abraya and tells her that she needs to go see Kamaji, who is in the boiler room, and ask him for a job. Because whoever doesn't work here is turned into an animal by Yubaba, a witch who rules Abraya. It's only 60 minutes up to this point. They are so dense and made with aesthetics of horror movies. But Miyazaki made it just slightly less scary so the kids could watch. All the necessary essences are still there though. For example, the parents do what they mustn't do without listening to Chihiro's warnings. Chihiro enters a place even though she senses danger, and like in vampire movies, the day turns into the night in a furious speed as the sun that was so bright up in the sky suddenly sets. Then these strange beings appear on the dark street. These amazing scenes unfold one after another without an interval in such short time. This is really the best horror movie sequence in the world. But not many people see this movie as a horror movie. So, one of the 14 mysteries that we cover tonight is about a mystery of this mysterious world. So, what is this world? It's one of the theme parks built by arrogant humans on ancient sacred places during the period of bubble economy. On top of that, this theme park was destroyed and the entire facility was turned into a haunted house. So that's what this mysterious world is. The situation resembles the one in Shining. It's like their haunted house made so much bigger in scale. That's why people don't realize that it's a horror movie. They think that it's a fantasy. What really makes the intro of this movie so entertaining is that it's got the taste of a horror movie like Shining, with scary scenes and a haunted house, but it's hard to tell because the audience starts sympathizing with the ghost as the story proceeds and the protagonist starts working with them. So the main plot is about a girl who gets stuck in the world and can't get out. The parents turn into pigs and her body starts vanishing as well, so the movie starts as a great horror movie, then it starts shifting towards a fantasy movie. This movie actually got the concept of shifting from a horror to a fantasy from somewhere else. Where did that come from? Well, I'll talk about it in the next segment.